So this is a topic that many people don't understand. I've been doing this a long time. I'm not your doctor, but I've trained hundreds of doctors on this subject. And the key component here is you start asking better questions. When people get their blood work back, I find more and more people have no clue. And if things are out of balance, they don't have an option. They're going to take a medication, so they don't really understand their risk. And that's really what I'm going to talk about, is not only knowing your numbers, how to improve those numbers, and also understanding what is your risk. That's a key question I want you to ask yourself. What is your risk? Now, the big thing I'll start with right now is cholesterol. Everybody talks about cholesterol. If I ask audience, how many of you had your cholesterol checked? Everybody raises their hand. Everybody gets their cholesterol checked. And most people think of cholesterol as a bad thing. And I'm going to help you understand a little bit more about that. Now, here's a statistic I want you to understand. 60 to 70% of all heart attacks occur with normal cholesterol levels. Wow. There's other factors that causing people to have a heart attack? Absolutely. So I want you to understand a little bit about cholesterol, what we can do about it, and I'll begin with, here it is. So when you're looking at your blood test, you will get this thing called total cholesterol. For most people, if that number is over 200, you're putting that bucket that this is a high risk. But I really will explain a little bit more about that. But I really want you to understand, when you get the blood tests back, don't get so concerned about the total number. In fact, we know right now they don't even test cholesterol with women that are pregnant. Why? Because we're building another life. And so cholesterol is magical. If a person has cancer, cholesterol's too low. So now we got to start backing up a little bit about, wow, this cholesterol thing could be really powerful in helping you understand it. So step number one is I want to know what my total cholesterol level is. Number two, we have to understand a big part of cholesterol itself is this thing called HDL. HDL is always looked upon as the nice thing, the happy thing, the thing that makes you healthy. The higher HDL, the better. Yes, it's true. And LDL is looked at the demon, and LDL is not. So HDL is the sweeper, and LDL is the spackler. They work together as a team. So there's no such thing as good and bad. I'll kind of help you understand that. So again, step one is understand what it is. Number two, a little bit about HDL and LDL. They work together as a team. And then one of the biggest risk factors, you can check particle size, you can do all these different tests, but I want to make this simple for you. Cholesterol to HDL ratio. So it's a real simple number. So for example, if my total cholesterol level is 240, most people are going to be put on a statin medication to lower that cholesterol. When in reality is we got to go back to your risk. But what if your HDL was 80? If your HDL is 80, you divide the 80 and the 240, and that ratio is 3. And ideally, the cholesterol HDL ratio for men should be 4.5 or less, and for women it should be 3.5 or less. So now we look at a risk at a level of 3, we have really good ratio here. So again, this is a big one to understand your risk factor here with your total cholesterol. And then last but not least, triglycerides are a mirror of what's going on in the human body. It's a fat that is in this bloodstream, but again, it's a real mirror. This can change, in fact, less than 30 days. Cholesterol profile takes months, maybe 3 to 4 months. Triglycerides is a short period of time. It's a window into how you're eating. So let's go a little deeper here. When we look at what is cholesterol, it's a waxy substance. And again, we think of that it blocks arteries, and it can. But the challenging piece is understanding a little bit about what it is and why we need it, which again goes back to what does it do? This is the power now. Now I'm going to help you understand the power of this right here. Cholesterol makes every cell membrane in the human body. So if cholesterol wasn't around, back to cancer, you're going to see low levels of cholesterol. So cholesterol makes every cell membrane, transports vitamins and minerals. It makes your myelin sheath in your brain. Optimal health, you need to make sure you have enough cholesterol for the brain. And last but not least, how many of you want to have better hormones? I know I do. So when I'm talking to people about their hormones, I come back to cholesterol and they're like, why are you talking about that? Because cholesterol makes your survival hormones, and cholesterol also makes your building hormones. So when you look at building the human body and the survival, if your stress hormones are on too much, that can actually steal from your building. But you want you to understand cholesterol is the top of the chain. So if we take cholesterol out of the system, we lower it, now you can see how it's going to get these hormones out of balance. So cholesterol does so many wonderful things in the human body. I hope you're starting to change your mindset that cholesterol is actually amazing. And then from here, why does it get out of balance? That's the greatest question ever. One of the greatest things that cholesterol does, it heals the body. So when the body gets out of balance, cholesterol gets out of balance. When the body gets back into balance, cholesterol gets out of balance, back into balance. So one of the things I tell people all the time, I've never had anybody not improve their cholesterol. I'm not your doctor, but in working with your physician, you can get this back into balance by changing your lifestyle. So again, back to the sleeping and the eating and all that kind of stuff. So again, why is it out of balance? Step back and ask the question, why is it out of balance? Now again, this is really going to be a little touchy subject for many people, but should I be taking a statin medication? This is interesting. Statin medications right now, this is going to be a $1 trillion industry in the next 5 to 10 years. $1 trillion we're spending on this right here. But we're not asking the right questions. Why is it out of balance? If my cholesterol level's high, we already saw this. My cholesterol's too high, but it's back into balance. I have very little risk. But when it does get out of balance, maybe I can change my lifestyle, and maybe the chances of me needing a statin medication disappear. But the side effect of a statin medication, it's going to affect your hormones. It's going to affect your brain, your muscle connective tissue. So if people are not willing to change their lifestyle, then this might be an option. But if people are willing to change their lifestyle, this is probably something that doesn't need to come in play, again, working with your physician. So how do you improve all this? What do you need to do? Number one, omega-3 fats. Omega-3 fats are powerful, getting your body back into balance. Number two, I'm going to start eating more whole foods. So the more whole foods I get, gets the body back into balance, maybe some superfoods, bringing more water to the party, getting a better night's sleep, moving my body on a daily basis. All these are magical to get your cholesterol profile back into balance. So again, when somebody says to you, hey, my cholesterol, I'm on a cholesterol medication, what do I need to do? Now you can see this. Now let me throw one more thing at you. What if I'm already on a statin medication? What do I do? This is really powerful. Imagine if you're taking 40 milligrams of a traditional statin medication. What do you need to do? You don't do anything except start working on those lifestyle factors we talked about, and we'll give you more of that information. But in the next 3 months, you go back to your doctor and you get another blood test, and you start looking at this here, and then you say, here's what my deal. I'd like to cut that dosage in half. You never want to jump off a statin medication. Work with your doctor and say, hey, let's cut it back in half, and then let's go back and let's look at my blood test. And then from there, maybe another 3 months, we cut it in half again. And you can see how this train goes. I've never had anybody not get off their cholesterol medication in 30 plus years doing this, working with their doctor, if they're willing to change their lifestyle. So again, part of this section is understanding, knowing your numbers and how to improve them, and again, understanding your risk. And understand, last but not least, that cholesterol is truly amazing, especially when it gets into balance. And as we age, we live longer, the higher our cholesterol is in balance. So in the United States today, type 2 diabetes has never been higher. And go back in time, 1970, we had 500,000 type 2 diabetics. In the next 5 to 10 years, we could have 100 million type 2 diabetics. And it's not just in the United States, it's a global problem. So what's causing this problem? I'm going to get into that in a second. But first, I want you to understand a little bit about your numbers. The first test most people get on a regular basis is everybody gets their glucose tests. That number should range between 65 and 99. As it starts creeping into the higher 90s, many people say it's prediabetes. I don't really say that. You're getting into diabetes. It means the cell's not being receptive to insulin. So if that number starts creeping up a little higher, we got to step back and start asking better questions. Now, if that number gets a little elevated, don't get so alarmed. What you need to understand is the glucose is a measurement, an instant measurement. Hemoglobin A1C looks at your glucose level over a period of time. This is a much more powerful number. So if you just happen to have a higher reading of 105 here, make sure you're getting your hemoglobin A1C, and that number should be between 4 and 5.6%. So I've had so many people that have had a high number here, but when they get into this number, there might be at 5.1. But if this number is creeping over 5.6, we're in full-blown type 2 diabetes. And what is type 2 diabetes? basically the cell is not healthy. So in the human body, this is where all the nutrients are, the body's working, you need to understand this thing called the cell membrane. So when we eat food, the food goes digestion, it comes into the cell, and what you're doing is you're trying to feed the cell. So how does the cell open up to be fed? It has to secrete insulin. Insulin opens up the cell, and now it feeds the cell. But if that cell membrane is too stiff and rigid, insulin has a hard time opening up the cell, hence my blood glucose level will rise. That's type 2 diabetes. But most people, when you talk about type 2 diabetes, you go to see your doctor and that number's high. Hey, quit eating bread, quit eating potatoes, quit eating carbohydrates. That's not the answer. The answer is the cell membrane is not receptive to the insulin. Now, once you start making that cell membrane more soft and permeable, insulin has an easier job to unlock that cell. It's like a rusty lock on a door. Once you start lubricating it, it opens up, and hence, my blood glucose level falls. So as that cell gets healthy, this is type 2 diabetes in a nutshell, the cell membrane's too stiff and rigid. So how do you improve this cell membrane? Number one, omega-3 fats. Omega-3 fats, the flax, the chia, the cod liver oil, that makes that cell soft and permeable. Number two, if I move my body on a daily basis, it helps to keep that cell soft, but it also helps to burn up glucose level. So if you can get people to do an omega-3 fat and start walking on a regular basis, their blood glucose level starts to fall down. And then from here, one of my favorite things to talk about is chlorophyll. That's greens. The more greens you put in the body, that's like scrubbing bubbles for the cell. So if you combine omega-3 fat with some form of chlorophyll like wheatgrass or spirulina chlorella or salads or things like that, that makes that cell, cleans it up. And then we all know that getting a healthy night's sleep will improve your blood glucose level, making sure you're well hydrated. Anything that makes the cell healthy will help improve your glucose level. So let's not be a statistic of continue to climb in this type 2 diabetes world. We have to understand that if you do have type 2 diabetes, is it fixable? Absolutely. You start getting back to getting the cell healthy, these numbers start to fall, and the next thing you know, away we go. Even if I'm on a type 2 diabetes medication, Chris, can you get off that? Working with your doctor? Absolutely. We've seen it more and more people do this. So again, you have much more control of your glucose level and your hemoglobin A1C, which again, back to making your cells nice and healthy. So when you talk about risk factors for heart disease and cancer, again, many people are concerned about their cholesterol levels, and we discussed that. But a couple big ones that most people are not familiar with. Everybody's had their cholesterol checked. We talked about that. But here's a couple big ones right here. One of the biggest predictors for heart attacks, and again, I said this before, 60 to 70% of all heart attacks occur in the United States with normal cholesterol levels. So what's the other factor causing this? It's homocysteine. For many of you, you've never had your homocysteine checked. It's a blood test, and again, you just get it going to see your doctor. But homocysteine measures oxidation. So when you have plaque build up in the arteries, many times it doesn't really cause a heart attack or a stroke, but when it cracks apart, it oxidizes, that's rust. And again, homocysteine is that number. So again, to improve your understanding your risk, we need to go back and make sure everybody gets their homocysteine checked, especially for women in heart disease. So what is that number? That number should be between 4 and 13. So years ago, I was training a woman, came to see me, 52 years old at the time, and she was concerned about heart issues in her family. And one of the things I wanted her to get checked is her homocysteine level. She had her cholesterol level, she was very lean looking, very fit looking. She came back and that number was 52. Super elevated. Again, what kind of diet was she on? She was on a high protein, low carb diet. Again, very, very oxidative. She had too much rust. So again, know that number, understand homocysteine. It's a real predictor for heart disease. The other one I want you to understand is called high sensitive CRP, C-reactive protein. That's an inflammation marker. Again, this is a big one for heart disease and cancer. So you need to know this number right here because again, tells you about inflammation in the human body. And if you have too much inflammation, this number will be elevated. And that number should be less than 1. And I've seen so many people come in and they're taking anti-inflammatories and all these different things. And reality is they're not listening to their body, understanding this high CRP. This is an inflammation marker. heart disease, cancer. So again, the big three is cholesterol profile, get your homocysteine checked, and your CRP. You need to know these numbers. So as we talk about them, okay, Chris, these are elevated. My CRP is, let's say 4, my homocysteine level's 17. How do I improve it? Very simply, to improve your oxidation levels is you decrease oxidation. That's the magical. So what does that mean? Folate, and again, we're not talking about folic acid. Folate is greens. And the more folate you put in the human body, it helps metabolize this homocysteine. So if you're trying to lower or improve your homocysteine number, the first thing we try to get people to understand is you need more greens in your diet. Back to the spirulina crulla, the wheatgrass, eating a big salad on a regular basis, kale, spinach, broccoli. Anything that has high levels of folate will help to lower that number. Followed by B vitamins. One of the things that we're seeing more and more people missing in their diet is B vitamins, especially ancient grains, potatoes. There's lots of different types of B vitamins that help to improve that number. So if you have a diet that's deficient in greens, deficient in B vitamins, these numbers start to elevate. So again, we saw that for many years that people on these different types of diets, they're taking these things out of the diet. And then last but not least is antioxidants. We've all heard of it. What is an antioxidant? It's a colorful fruit and vegetable. So if I'm eating colorful fruits and vegetables, I decrease my oxidation level, hence improving my homocysteine level. And then we move over to the high sensitive C-reactive protein. How do you improve that? Number one, for improving this inflammation, is you start bringing more healthy fats. Coconut, macadamia nuts, cod liver oil, flax chia. All these healthy fats help to improve that number. Number two, an alkaline-based diet. Adding a water with lemon. Anything that eating more in the center of the food target is going to be more alkalizing. And again, as we understand improving the alkalinity, you will lower that CRP number. And then super greens, wheatgrass, spirulina crulla, these things all help to lower that. And as I mentioned, water with lemon. Get crazy, maybe even add ginger or turmeric. These are all ways to decrease inflammation. And then when moving down, we need to get more rest. When I see people that are not getting enough rest, this number is very elevated. They're not getting good sleep. They don't have any white space. There's no micro breaks during their day. This thing's all magical. And if their stress levels are too high, this number will go up. So you're saying, well, how does that work? Again, back to the nervous system. So if my stress levels are high, that number will go up. So this is a fantastic marker to understand how the human body's working. Maybe you get a foam roller, get a massage, all these things benefit. And last but not least, daily movement. Just moving your body, we call it restorative movements, and no redlining. More intense the workouts become, if it gets too intense, this number will go up. So when people are overtraining, you're seeing this number elevate because it's too difficult. So as I summarize here, next time you get your blood test, make sure you get your homocysteine checked, measures oxidation, your rust. And last but not least, make sure you're getting your high sensitive CRP, measures your inflammation. And those two factors will tell you what your risk is, and that's what you need to know. As we continue to march down the know your numbers, here's a couple other things I want you to understand. The first one is prostate. Again, this is for the guys. So when you think about prostate, this number should be between 0 and 4. But there's a lot of research talking about whether that number that is the antigen, prostate stimulating antigen, is really accurate or not. But here's what I want you to understand. Once you hit 50, you need to get physically checked. And what the doctors are looking for is they're looking for space in the prostate. It's like an M. The more space between the mountains or the M, again, we know that prostate's growing. So again, we're not trusting just the numbers. Make sure your doctor physically checks this. So every year I go in for a physical, I'm always getting my prostate physically checked, okay? So this is a big one here. Don't trust the numbers. More or less, you need to get this physically checked with your physician. We move into thyroid. Again, this is not just for women anymore. This is for men and women. We're seeing epidemics of thyroid problems. It gets out of balance. And the big thing for thyroid is understanding what that number is, 0.35 to 5.5. And if that number starts to drop, I start having more fatigue, increased belly fat, the energy levels go down. So again, this is a big one for more and more people. But I always ask the question too, and why do we have all these thyroid problems in the United States when you look at other countries around the world? they're not seeing the same epidemic levels of thyroid. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But again, understanding your thyroid itself, whether it's T3 and T4, maybe what you're eating doesn't allow you to absorb the nutrients you need. We'll talk about this in a minute, but that number should be, T3 should be 27% to 47%. And then T4 should be between 4 and 12. So again, these are your numbers, and I'll get into what we can do to improve that. But this is a big problem right now in the United States, and I see so many people that are coming to us asking questions, how do I improve that? Or is it possible to maybe get off one of my medications? And then we move into vitamin D3. D3 is huge, or vitamin D in general. It's a big, big thing. So if you're not getting good balance between your vitamin D, you're going to have other issues. Could be you're lacking sleep. There's a lot of things that causing D3 to get out of balance. But that number ideally should be between 25 and 80. And again, if you look around other countries around the world that they're getting outside more often, these numbers are naturally higher. So again, if you live in a climate that you're not getting natural sunlight, I always tell people too, when you get your blood test, make sure if you're in a climate they don't have a lot of sun in the winter, make sure you're getting that checked at different times of the year. Where we live in Michigan, this number might be low if I get it checked in January, might be much higher in July. So again, D3 is a big one, or D itself. We'll talk about D3 is a little bit easier to absorb. And the last one I love talking about is glomerular filtration rate. This is called your GFR. I don't hear any of the medical world talking about this. This is a huge number. Why is this? This is a kidney, how the kidneys are working. If the kidneys are not working, other parts of the body have to really work overtime. And what I've seen, and we've seen in our practice here at On Target Living, is that these numbers keep falling and falling and falling. And again, if the kidney function is getting lower, and nobody wants to get into dialysis, but this is where we're seeing epidemic levels. Now here's what I want you to know. Get a specific number. The doctors are not going to talk about this number unless it gets under 60. The number should be between 60 and 120. But if it's 60 or above, they get that. I want you to know exactly that number. So each year when I get my blood test, I hover between 78 and 85. I'm always looking at that specifically. I had a woman not too long ago came to see me. Her GFR was at 41. A year later it was at 65. The doctors are asking, what did you do to improve your GFR? Again, this is a big one to tell you how the body's actually working. So how do you improve these numbers? Here we go. When you look at the prostate, very similar to the thyroid, is you want to understand how these healthy fats come in. So GLA, omega-3 fats, this could be as simple as consuming pumpkin seeds on a regular basis. People are asking me all the time, what do we do for prostate? You start consuming some healthy fats, including GLA, simple as pumpkin seeds or Brazil nuts. Sea vegetables are high in iodine. One of the highest sources of iodine on the planet is sea vegetables. Maybe you consume kelp on a regular basis, or sushi nori, or whatever it might be, but sea vegetables are high in iodine. Spirulina chlorella is also high in iodine. So again, one of the ways to improve prostate, we tell people, is take some spirulina chlorella, high in iodine. And then any of your cereal grasses, especially wheatgrass, is high in minerals. And minerals is fantastic for the prostate. And then down here with zinc. When people are taking all these anti-inflammatory medications, they leach out many minerals, many trace minerals, and one of the minerals that leaches out is called zinc. So if you're taking an anti-inflammatory medication over the counter on a daily basis, this is leading to low zinc levels, and zinc really helps to support the prostate. And last but not least, anytime you decrease your inflammation, whether it's an alkaline-based diet, it's all going to be really good for your prostate. From here, we move into the thyroid. And again, it's not just a woman's problem or a man problem, it's everybody. So the big thing with the thyroid itself is the adrenals get beat up. And really what happens here is our stress levels are all-time high. So that's why when you look at other countries around the world, whether they're handling stress differently or it is differently, their adrenals are not getting beat up. Because if the stress levels are too high, you say, hey Chris, what's the number one thing you can do for your thyroid? You got to get under control your stress and understand rest. So again, that's what happens. Adrenals get beat up and these numbers start to get wacky on you. And then back to iodine. Foods high in iodine support the thyroid. We know if you can get people to consume a higher iodine diet, and again, if you're eating more whole foods, you're going to bring more iodine. I mentioned earlier, sea vegetables, spirulina chlorella. And similar to prostate is you want to bring zinc. So that could be pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, chicken. These things are all high levels of zinc. So again, easy ways to improve that. And then I always talk about when you have a thyroid issue, we got to get the liver clean. If the liver's more clean, you're going to have better thyroid production. And last but not least, if you're having problems with thyroid, we really have to focus on your rest and how you talk to yourself on the stress meter. From here, if you're looking at D3 is more absorbable vitamin D than D2. We're really focusing on D3. The highest source of way to improve your vitamin D3 level or your D itself is you need to get out in the sun. So sun is huge. Number 2, cod liver oil is naturally high in D3. Over 600 milligrams of D3 per tablespoon of cod liver oil. And again, that's why we promote cod liver oil all the time, because it's high in D3. And then medications. If you're taking a lot of over-the-counter medication or prescription meds, this will leach out. And again, very difficult to absorb. So think about, check out your medications. Are these things really infringing on this? And last but not least, greens. Chlorophyll is going to create lots of energy, and again, it's like sunlight in a bottle. So again, these are ways to improve your D levels. And the last piece here, how do I improve my GFR, my kidney function? Number 1, if you're consuming too much protein or protein supplementation, this number will drop. So again, first thing I look at is the amount of protein people are consuming on a daily basis. They're putting too much protein in their smoothies. This can all lower your GFR. And again, that GFR number needs to be probably in the 70s on up. Alcohol consumption. I worked with a client years ago and he's consuming too much alcohol. Again, alcohol is dropping that GFR number. And then processed foods. Anything processed you put in the body has to work really hard. Again, your GFR drops. How do you improve it? Pretty simple. You need to make sure you're getting more hydration. Back to the greens. Anytime you improve your health of your diet, daily movement, these all improve the kidney function, and that's magical improving this number. So get this number and pay attention to that number. This is magical in keeping your body healthy. So quick review. Pay attention to your prostate, get it physically checked. Your thyroid, are you getting enough rest? Vitamin D, get out in the sun. Cod liver oil. And your kidney function, GFR, look at what you're putting in your body. Maybe it's too much alcohol, processed foods, soda pop, whatever, and then start bringing some healthy nutrients to the body. This will all affect this kidney function. Again, we're trying to improve these numbers, and you have it right in front of you. So how would you like to know how you're aging? When I talk to people about aging, like, how do I know how I'm aging? Well, here it is. Testosterone. For both men and women, this is the #1 predictor of how you're aging. And if I ask most people, do you know what that number is? They don't. So again, we need to start with knowing your numbers, and a big one is testosterone. So when you think about testosterone, what does it do? It does everything. It makes the body, it builds the body, it heals the body. So as we age, this number naturally comes down. But it doesn't have to come down as much as we're seeing right now in the United States. Again, this is a number we can definitely improve upon. So what do we want that number to look like? For women, between 30 and 95. So again, we see so many women that this number is so low, but they've never been told this. And again, if my testosterone level is out of balance, then my other hormones are going to be out of balance. So again, it's a real big number to understand. So for women, 30 to 95. For men, that number should be between 400 and 1,000. And again, as we age, you're going to see this drop for both men and women, but it doesn't have to drop as fast as we think it should. So again, this is a magical number, how we're aging. Hormones, belly fat, muscle, you see it, ageless male, all these wonderful, supplements that people look at each and every night on TV, they don't have to go down this path. Do I have to do bioidentical hormones? Well, we can talk about that, but really not at the very beginning. So step number 1, understanding that cholesterol makes hormones. It makes your stress hormones, such as cortisol, and it makes your building hormones, such as testosterone. So why am I explaining this? Because I want you to understand that we want to maintain a high cholesterol level in balance to have a really good building hormones or testosterone. If your stress levels are too high, survival hormones will always dominate building hormones. So this is called cortisol steal. The cortisol will take precedent over your building hormones, hence it will drop. So again, back to why do I not want to start with bioidentical hormones? Because again, that might be an alternative for many people. Because even if you give people bioidentical hormones and they haven't tackled this, they will still have an imbalance. So this is what I've seen in my career, that if you can get this under control and you start doing things to build this, testosterone naturally comes up. So how do you improve your testosterone level? Number one, got to get this control on your stress. Because if your stress level is out of balance, it's going to pull testosterone level down. What kind of rest rejuvenation strategies do you have? Are you getting a good night's sleep? Do you have any micro breaks? Do you get a massage? All these magical things are critical to improve your testosterone level. And then omega-3 fats. Omega-3 fats are the raw material that build your testosterone level. So am I getting that omega-3 such as cod liver oil, flax and chia, walnuts? And zinc. This is real specific for raising testosterone level. Ancient grains like an oatmeal or amaranth boost zinc levels. Pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, greens, chicken, these are all high levels of zinc, which is a trace mineral that actually specifically boosts that testosterone level. And then last but not least, we get into strength training. It's the fountain of youth. You need stimulation to the body, the connective tissue, the bones, the muscle, and when you do strength training systematically, it puts more stress on the body and builds the body. And finally, to improve your testosterone level, understand that statin medications can lower testosterone levels. And how it does that is that it lowers cholesterol. Cholesterol basically is the building block for testosterone. So I'm not asking you to get off a statin med, just I want you to be aware that if you lower cholesterol levels many times, it also lowers testosterone. So as I recap here, understand that testosterone is the number one predictor of how you're aging. And here's to everybody aging well. You've learned a lot of information here, but now what do you need to do? Simple. You print off Know Your Numbers, you walk into your doctor's office and you ask for these numbers. Now that you know what the numbers are, now it's your turn to improve the numbers. You have the knowledge, now it's your time to take the action.